Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week we're talking about why small moments feel so big sometimes. Pressure. And as the great philosopher Billy Joel once said, but you will come to a place where the only thing you feel are guns in your face. I could sing this for you, but I'll save it because you don't want that. And you have to deal with pressure. And most of you are probably too young to know that song, but Google it, it's a pretty good one. But the gist of it is that we're all at some point dealing with pressure. And as we continue this theme of pressure, we know that pressure doesn't just show up in national championships or on nationally televised epic battles like the UCLA Texas Tech battle last night. What a great game. Sometimes pressure is literally just getting everybody out of the house on time. And trust me, that is the pressure we feel very often in this house in the morning when we're trying to go catch the bus. But it's summer now, so we're away from that for a little while. But the bottom line is this: sometimes pressure is being put on the spot during a meeting. Sometimes it's trying to figure out whether you found the right players out of the portal. Sometimes it's being in a high school softball game at Akron Firestone Stadium, which is coming. The state tournament's coming this week. Can't wait, doing a little color commentary for that. But it's knowing right then and there that you're one and done, win or go home. That's pressure. And sometimes it's at a 14U rec baseball game that logically we know doesn't really matter in a whole grand scheme of things, but somehow it starts to feel incredibly important in the moment. And that's what happened to me last week. We're making bonehead mistakes. The strike zone was inconsistent. We're losing to a team that hadn't won a game yet. And honestly, we're told that the coach on the other side was sort of a little bit. So we got our dukes up. We're ready to go. But we could feel the frustration building in me, around, just in general. And this is what fascinates me about pressure. Our bodies often react to perceived importance, not the actual importance. So research tells us that the nervous system responds strongly to evaluation, uncertainty, perceived threat, and perceived loss of control. And in many situations, the brain reacts before our logic catches up. In other words, our body doesn't always distinguish between this is annoying or this is dangerous. And those are two different things. But when pressure spikes, our attention shifts, our breathing changes, we start to look at mistakes and fear and outcomes and frustration instead of what's right in front of us, the present task. And this is where I was, in the what ifs or what the heck in my past thinking mode. But we're not only in our heads at that point, our body goes into overdrive too. Our heart rate goes crazy, our breathing changes, and you know the rest of the story. This is why athletes can become overwhelmed during situations that really shouldn't matter that much. The pressure feels real because it's physiological. It is real physiologically. Research in attentional control theory has found that anxiety competes for the brain's attentional resources. Worry and frustration consume mental bandwidth, which we only have so much of. That makes it harder to process relevant information and stay focused on what's right in front of us, which is the task at hand. That matters because pressure often creates secondary problems. The pressure is really not the problem, it's what happens after that. Our reaction to the situation. That's what becomes the issue. And we know this. So as I'm standing on the field, I felt pulled, right, towards frustration, towards urgency. And honestly, the game itself is not life-changing. And trust me, nobody cares about this game. But the emotions were still real. So I took a deep breath. I smiled. I reminded myself how lucky I was to be standing there coaching baseball with this great little group of little guys and my son and his teammates. And then I reminded myself of one of our team's strengths. We capitalize on relief pitching. We're really good at it. And this small mental shift was all that I needed. Me talking about what was true made a huge difference. Not because it magically removed any pressure, but because it interrupted the spiral that I had gotten into. And trust me, I feel ridiculous talking about this example, but it's the perfect example of how we get swept into situations that logically we know don't deserve this heightened emotion, but we go there anyway. And later, after the cooler heads prevail, we realize how ridiculous it was. And that's exactly how I felt. But in the long run, it's the tools that we learn, the tools that we use, the skills that we have that can help us manage rec baseball and everything else that's important to us in life. So research on emotional regulation suggests that this reappraisal and intentional reframing of situations can significantly influence physiological responses and emotional responses. In simpler terms, if the meaning we assign to things changes how our body responds to this. Here is how I describe this. We're constantly assessing meaning. I say that people love Starbucks. I think it's ridiculous. I don't know why anybody spends that much money for coffee, and I'm not waiting in a line that long to get coffee. I do like the treats that they have, and I will eat those, but coffee's not important to me. But people love it, and I'm good with that. I'm a little too cheap for it, maybe. I don't know. I enjoy running races. And other people are like, well, are you seriously paying to go run a race? And sometimes I think that when I'm in the middle of the race too, like I paid to do this. This is crazy. But the point is, Starbucks is not good or bad. Races are not good or bad. It's what we think they are. It's what we think they are. And how we think changes how our body responds, plain and simple. That's important because many people think pressure means becoming calm all the time, but it doesn't. It means recognizing activation, understanding the meaning that we're giving something, and redirecting our attention before the moment completely hijacks us into something or somebody that we don't want to be. The cool part is that Dr. Jha, who we talked about last week, says this, right? The attention is the brain's boss. And when pressure rises, attention drifts toward outcomes and mistakes like we talked about. But we can manage that. We can learn how to control our attention or manage our attention. Pressure is not always about the event itself. It's about the meaning that we assign to it. It's about noticing that we're following and getting swept away in this. Two people can experience the same exact thing. Somebody says good, the other person says another four-letter word, but that's what we have to understand about ourselves, right? But Dr. Kelly McGonigal says in The Upside of Stress that stress happens when something we care about is at stake. I love that because it reminds us that pressure is not weakness, it's an interpretation. And often just means that we care. We care about this. The challenge is that once the nervous system becomes activated, the brain starts searching for evidence to support whatever story we're telling ourselves, and that is where the spiral gets a hold of us and starts to pull on us. This is why I love simple pressure management tools that connect us directly back to our mindful discussion of last week. And we can notice, go to truth, and then narrow. First, we notice, what is the pressure doing to my body? And that we can thank our mindfulness work for that, right? Am I catastrophizing? Am I speeding up? Am I focused on outcomes instead of execution? What is going on? I've got to notice. Self-awareness is our superpower. Awareness is the very first step. Then we look at what's true. What's the truth? We ask ourselves a question, like we discussed, last week or 2 weeks ago. What do I know is true right now? That's what I did to myself. I know that we can attack relief pitching. We're good at it. We're better later in the game. We're not talking about the story we're telling ourselves. We're not talking about fear. We're not looking at assumptions. We're talking about facts. In our baseball game, the fact was, yes, we're losing now, but normally we score a lot of runs in the fourth and fifth inning. That simple truth immediately interrupted my emotional spiral, brought me back to like reality Julie, not like all crazy Julie, and it kept me out of emotional chaos or shifted me away from it. And then finally, we narrow. We narrow our attention toward the smallest useful thing in front of us. Maybe it's one pitch, it's one breath, it's one conversation, it's one decision, it's one inning, it's one response, it's one. Something, one. Elite performers recover quicker because they know that pressure pulls their attention away and they focus on what's important right now. Not what's perfect, just intentional. They're intentional. And maybe that's really the lesson. Pressure management is not about being fearless. It's about becoming emotionless. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about managing pressure. Pressure, you care, right? It's not about avoiding it. It's interpreting it and responding to it productively. It's about becoming more aware of the stories the pressure's creating. It's learning how to anchor ourselves in truth. It's training our attention to return to execution before the spiral takes over. That awareness creates a choice. And that choice allows us to understand that we are in charge. So we come back to noticing. And then we look at what's true. What's the truth? We're going to be able to hit. That's what's going to happen. That's what we normally do. And if it doesn't happen, even if we have that attitude, it keeps us on the right track. We go back to one conversation. The first thing that you want to say in a sentence. Get started in wherever you're going. Focus and narrow at the end. And if we can take that little pathway, notice, truth, narrow, we are pulling ourselves back from getting swept away like 14U baseball can do, even to someone who has coached way higher stakes games. It's unbelievable that I can feel myself getting this way, but it happens to all of us. It's just the truth. As Billy Joel, the great philosopher, said, one day you're going to feel it. And when you do, you just have to be ready. Because again, it's part of the deal, plain and simple. When we care about something, it's going to make us feel different. And when we feel different, we act differently. And when we act differently, our results are different. So it starts with noticing and then going from there. I'm loading up for 26, 27. If you'd like to join our team, shoot me an email at juliej@ssbperformance.com. I'd love to work with your group. I'd love to work with your team because pressure is real, but we've got ways to attack it. And if we can attack it, pressure becomes manageable. So it's your choice on whether you're going to have a good week or not. So I'll leave it up to you. Until next week, see you then.